everybody. Happy Father's Day for those of you that are fathers, and uh, want to take a moment to thank my son Garrett, who does all my content with me, as you know, social media stuff. It's an extra honor to and privilege to work with him, and our daughters who are actually have traveled here for a family event this weekend, and my grandchildren and our grandchildren, and how great it is, how blessed I am to be a father, and grateful for it, and for my wonderful children. And anyway, hey, this is gonna land after Father's Day, but I wanted to take a moment to pay tribute to fathers. And you know that when I talk about leaders, I talk about great, not perfect leaders. And I want to talk about great, certainly not perfect fathers, of which I certainly know that I'm not perfect. But I want to just talk about my dad for a little bit in this concept about great, not perfect. And I know all these situations around relationships between children and fathers is uniquely and distinctly your own. And forgive me for trying to make a generic connection, but I do want to just encourage us to think about the stories of our fathers, and that to recognize that they are often very imperfect, although wanting to care and to be great as they can be based on what they know. And I was thinking about my dad today. He's gone, he's passed away a number of years now, but he used to just things that he did, like when I played hockey, there weren't very many indoor rinks. There were only two of them in the city that here in Western Canada. And a lot of games when I played were in outdoor rinks, and it was very cold, and you'd play until 10 below 0 Fahrenheit, and that's when they would cancel the games. And I remember him coming almost every time he could, and he worked night shift lots, but every time he could, there he was on the sidelines, holding on to his ears because they were frozen, stamping his feet because it was so doggone cold. And of course, in between periods, somebody had to shovel the snow off the rink to make it more playable for the next period. And their old dad was, with a couple of other dads, pushing a big long shovel along to clean off the ice. Or I remember that I had one of my first jobs was shoveling snow for the convent around the school that I went to, and had a big long area to shovel. And I was about 12 years old, and one day it just snowed like heck, and after a long shift, here comes Dad, drives up, helps me shovel the whole doggone thing. And there's so many stories where he was just there in the background in a low-key kind of a way. And then in the imperfect side, I played almost every sport, and I was a pretty good athlete. And I was always I could tell you honestly that I was always one of the better players in the teams that I played. And on the drive home, it used to be such a pain in the butt, because he would criticize every single play that I made. I could have scored 4 goals or hit 4 home runs, and it was never good enough. And sometimes I used to go, holy cow, because this guy never ever, is it never good enough for this guy? And I realized that in all those cases, it was always about him wanting to, how much he cared, how much he loved me and my brother, and how he always wanted the best for us. And even though he was clumsy sometime around how he criticized us, or rather than coached us, and was on the perfection side of things sometimes, to the point where it just drove you crazy. But overall, he was there to help you shovel that snow, or to cheer you on. Or I miss him. And I always need to remind myself of his whole story about what he grew up with, what he had to overcome. and how that defined him and therefore had an impact on me. He was incredibly great, certainly imperfect. I miss him. And I take a moment out on this day to just remind myself that how much that I'm grateful for both his imperfection and his deep love to want to make things as good as possible for me and for all my brother and my mom and everybody else. Anyway, there it is, kind of a rambling, great but not perfect story about fathers. And I hope that you have a chance to think about how one way or another your father's in you, and that we're also all great imperfect humans, and therefore that just gives us permission to continue to move forward. And with that, again, happy belated Father's Day, because it'll probably be Monday after you read this. And I hope you had a day to just remember yesterday, or to remind, if your father's hopefully still well and active, that you could just acknowledge that well-intended greatness. Thanks, and look forward to seeing you next Lead In and on all of our socials. Bye for now.